right, Scott. Hey, congratulations on your new documentary, Realm of Satan.
Hi, thanks so much.
It is so funny. The title made it sound like I was watching a horror movie. I didn't realize I was watching a documentary.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the whole ethos of the film is actually it's going to be something that you're not really expecting as often as possible. It's always been a very difficult film to describe for that reason. But that's kind of I'm happy to hear you say that.
Well, also congratulations the fact that it's being showcased at the upcoming Sundance Film Festival. I mean that is one of the most prestigious film festivals in the world, especially for a documentary like this.
Yeah. I'm thrilled. Obviously, I can't think of a better way to kind of start the life of the film, and also the fact that they kind of, yeah, I mean, just that seal of approval, means so much. It's also obviously a pretty unconventional film, so to have somebody, who I respect so much, who has kind of, just the level of cachet that they have, uh, kind of say, hey, this is worth your time to people is just like such a huge boon for the film because it's not necessarily, yeah, I mean it's a weird movie, it's a very weird movie, so to have somebody else stand behind it besides the people who made it is very exciting.
So, what sparked you to make this movie in the first place?
Yeah, I had been aware of the Church of Satan for a long time, since I was like a teenager. I was a child in the 80s. So, that in the 80s, Satanism was around everywhere. People were like, I just so distinctly remember people playing a New Kids on the Block album backwards on the news,
Yeah.
to say that there were secret messages. It was like on the local news. I mean, it was very in the air and crazy and kind of like this part of my childhood. And they were on talk shows, and I was aware that I watched all that stuff as a kid, and so they were always kind of around my consciousness. And I thought about them for many years, actually. And I was looking for a new person to collaborate with on a film. I made another kind of similar film with a bunch of juggalos, um, who are, a maligned kind of social group that have a reputation as being a bit crazy. And, we had a really amazing time. And I loved that experience. And I spent all this time with these juggalos. And I was like, well, who else kind of brings, a mythology and a cachet, that would be interesting to collaborate with and meet. Um, and somehow that Church of Satan thing just came back into my head, and I thought, yeah, okay, yeah, they would be interesting, if they'll have me. So I just kind of reached out and sent an email off into the ether, not really expecting anything, and thankfully somebody wrote back, and that kind of started the process of us talking. And I think I approached them initially. This Church of Satan's been around a long time. There's a bunch of regular documentaries about them. There's an amazing documentary from the '60s about Church of Satan called Satanists that I'm just like completely obsessed with. And they've had they have TV shows about them and stuff, and I think just like people had made that normal documentary so many times about them that they really didn't want to do anything like that again. And then when I kind of approached something a little more like esoteric or like cinephile, or sort of an art film slash nonfiction art film, I think they like responded to that. And the head of the church is quite a cinephile, so we kind of spoke a similar language in ways. Actually, he of everybody, who wasn't a, yeah, I want to say besides the producer and his producers and the DP, he most people when you talk to them about films kind of have no idea what you're talking about, and actually he totally always got him, which is this kind of amazing thing. I mean, he's like a very interesting, smart guy, but yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That was kind of it.
Did church provide you the subjects that you want to approach that was willing to do, or you had to basically like kind of go out there and still convince them to be part of this your project?
Uh, it was a little bit of each. I think that I had gotten to know some people who were more local to me, um, who I really liked actually, and I had gotten I consider myself very friendly with one of the members, just on like a social level. We got to know each other just as like normal friends outside of like I'd never talked to him about the Church of Satan, like never. Is I even forget that it has anything to do with us knowing each other. Um, like, but so I knew him, and then I kind of met other local people. So I had them, and that kind of opened up the world a little bit. But then Peter, they're the Church of Satan is a very diverse group of people. So there are people who are very different, and some people are very open and some people are very closed. And I think he steered me towards people he knew would be interested in me or open to the project. And he steered me away from people who would be severely disinterested in me and possibly not super friendly. So he kind of guided me to people that I think he knew would be um, like just open to the project as opposed to me wasting time because there were people was interested in. He was like, no, don't 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 write to them. They're not going to talk to you, or they're not going to be nice to you. I mean, it's the Church of Satan. Like a lot of people are mean,
Yeah.
but some people are nice, but they're still Satanists, So there is always a level of. I mean, I say that in a silly way, but they're still Satanists. There is a level of adversarial there's an adversarial level to all of them, and some people would not have would not have wanted to be approached by me, and would not be happy that I approached them. So he steered me away from that.
I find your how can you say your approach to filmmaking quite unique in this documentary. How do you go? What do you tell your subjects? Like try to do something that we don't usually see in your daily lives, or just go
Um,
about your life.
it depends. Some of the ideas are very thought out in advance, and some of the ideas just come, are totally scripted before I even meet people. Some of the ideas come from me knowing the people for a long time, or from something I know that they're distinctly connected to. And then other people I don't really know at all. And that is it's kind of the most fun, but it's also very stressful. So, you kind of show up at somebody's house that you've never met, and they're usually very welcoming. So that was great, and that was part of Peter's introducing. Because I'm going to be invading people's space for a day or two or three. He kind of he made sure I knew people who were going to be welcoming to that. So I'd show up to people's space and they'd be welcoming, and we'd kind of sit down and talk and kind of look around their space. And a lot of times, sometimes their space would dictate things like visually, what can we use here? But a lot of times people are pretty open about what their interests are. So, or you'd see, oh, like what's that on the wall? And it's like, oh, I make I make wall sigils or whatever. And it's like, oh, maybe we should make one in the film. And then, so it's connected to Satanism because it's a satanic thing, and that's sort of like a hobby or a business or whatever. But it just reveals itself kind of when you're there, once you get into the space and once you're around them. And besides that, people are usually kind of open, like, oh, I'm a beekeeper. There was a beekeeper in the film, but we took that out, sadly. But like a satanic beekeeper, I mean, it's already like 3 layers of like, well, he's a beekeeper, but he's a Satanist beekeeper. I mean, that's like a lot of different layers already. So you find those things out when you show up, kind of. And, the more time, usually the better. And then at some point, usually it's clear that the time is over. And sometimes, sometimes we, at some point, because making a film like this is a bit about like collecting material, um, you start to get a puzzle,
Hmm.
and you start to realize, like, okay, I have like 65% of this puzzle. Like, how do I figure out how to like get the other 35%? And I mean, that's editing in general, but like, and then you're like, okay, I need to like figure out a way to like, I need to put more magic in the movie. I need to like figure out a way to have somebody do something magical. I need to put more information about this character's house being arsoned in the movie. And then you kind of like slot people into like what you need from them, actually. It's like, I need somebody to watch this on TV so this information comes out. And it's like, okay, we'll just have that person watch TV. Um,
Yeah.
and then the film kind of, you figure out the structure through that.
And I'm gonna have to say you put a lot of thought on how to open this film and how to close it, which is quite eye-opening.
Yes, opening in general. The most important shot of any film is the first shot and the last shot. So it gives you a lot of leeway in between those two things if you can kind of drop people on the floor with those things. So it's a bit of a trick maybe, but yeah. But they ended up. It's interesting. I didn't quite see how they would be connected
Hmm.
as until we started doing it, and then I was like, oh yeah, actually, this worked out.
It worked very well. Well, Scott, let me wrap it up with one last question with you. As audiences have a chance to watch your film, what is the one most important take that they should walk away with?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was always the watching the film or watching any film, and for me, it's always the same. I like the idea that people are able to have an experience where they watch something and they get confronted with something uncanny that they don't actually know how to process, and actually they get confronted with a mystery in a sense. Um, and they have to kind of work through that on their own. So in a way, it's not about so much taking away a message, but like a feeling that like I just lived through something and I kind of don't know how to talk about it, And that for me is always how all my favorite films are. Like, okay, I'm just gonna sit here for like 10 minutes and just like figure out what the hell I just watched. And in like 2 weeks or something, I'll maybe have an opinion about it. But that's the main thing. It's more about like that feeling that I just lived through something that I just got a glimpse of something that I can't quite explain, that I kind of don't even know how to process. And now I'm going to walk away from it and like walk back out and get a drink or whatever. And then in 3 weeks, I'm going to think about this again and try to process what just happened to me.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I have to admit, this film does feel like a Sundance film, and it was very appropriate to be, showcasing at Sundance. So, Scott,
Oh, thanks.
thank you very much for speaking to us about The Realm of Satan. Can't wait for our audiences to check it out.
Great. Thanks so much. Talk soon.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye bye.